Hello, and welcome to Progressive West Texas, the show where we talk to community leaders trying to make positive change in our area. I am your host, Cannon Roberts. You can follow me on TikTok and Instagram at West Texas Progressive. Today, I am talking to John Gatica, who is the Democratic candidate for County Commissioner District 2 here in Lubbock. So that includes a lot of southeast Lubbock. It goes into central Lubbock because of gerrymandering. And Slayton, and it includes the town of Slayton. We're going to talk a lot about Slayton, which I really like. Slayton is an interesting little quirky town. I have cousins there. We talk about some of that at the end. I do want to start by full disclosure here. I am helping John on his campaign, and so he asked me to help run his campaign for county commissioner. So we are working together on that. Lubbock is having a little bit of campaign fatigue right now between our municipal campaigns and then the primary runoffs. People have been getting a lot of in-your-face campaigning, and so we haven't quite started that part yet. But John's a community leader. Like, John's out there in the community working. Like, his Facebook is about the work that he's doing in the community. He does a lot with education, a lot with schools. And so when you have someone who is that active in the community, who's already building those relationships, campaigning is a lot easier. And so we're going to really hit it hard here in a couple of months. But John's out there doing the hard work right now. So there's not a lot to worry about when you have a candidate willing to do that. So I do one thing I learned about John. I've known him for a few years now. I did not know that he taught in Uvalde, Texas, for a few years. I did not know that. We do mention that briefly. We don't really talk about the tragedy that happened there. And so just, he's going to bring that up. We're going to kind of go back to it. He's going to bring up the fact that he lived in Uvalde. We'll kind of go back to it. But there's no discussion of the tragedy, so you don't have to worry about that. But this was a lot of fun. This was a lot of fun. John and I like to talk to each other, and so this was a really good conversation. And he really knows why he's running. He knows what he wants to do differently, and he has really thoughtful answers to some tough questions. So hope you enjoy. So let's go talk to John Gatica. All right, John. So let's start out. Tell us what you're running for and why you decided to run for that office.
Running for County Commissioner Precinct 2. Running for that office because I think that we have several people that have approached me and just kind of want a little bit of change. They want to be able to be a part of the commissioner's court and work within the commissioner's court instead of working as an outsider or as someone that's going to work against them. I think that sometimes when you work it within an organization, it's more conducive to work as a team and to work as a body than to work as an individual and kind of buck the system. And I think that the precinct that I live in needs a voice and needs a voice that can work within a body and is experienced in working with a body like the commissioner's court. I mean, I've worked on school boards before where you work for one purpose, and that's to improve the entire system, but not just to improve one person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and you mentioned a couple of the things that I wanted to talk about next, because one thing that people like to talk about here in Lubbock, and one thing that people kept bringing up with Adam Hernandez's his run for mayor, was his experience and his lack of experience. Not that Trey Payne, has any experience being mayor, but people do like to bring that up. And who has experience? You have experience. You have. This is not your first rodeo. You have run and won other elections. So can you tell me what other offices have you served in? Well, let's start with the first one. You mentioned school board. So when were you on the school board?
Yeah. So when my children were in elementary school, which is a few years back, I was on the school board in Slayton. I was part of the process of hiring a new superintendent during that time, which is probably the biggest responsibility of a school board member. And then um, on the school board, I think that you have to kind of know your lane, know what your purpose is as far as uh, um, supporting or creating policies that is going to be conducive to the betterment of the school, the entire school, not just one facet of the school system. So I served on the school board here, um, and then I've served on several advisory councils at Texas Tech University at South Plains College, um, and I was on the Hispanic Chamber during the time Judge Medina and that group was in there. Uh, and then I served on the city council in Plainview here recently. I think I resigned from on 2018 because I moved to Slayton, which is my hometown. Otherwise, I'd probably still be on there. Probably by now, I'm hoping I'd be married by now. I enjoyed my tenure in Plainview, but we moved home. And so I ran for mayor here in Slayton. Lost by about a couple of times by 100 votes or so in runoffs, but that's okay. I mean, that's what the system is set up for, and I continue to help the community set up scholarships for kids um, through my family funds, and um, have done whatever I can to help and help the community here in Slayton. And of course, I live in precinct two, um, and just kind of listen to people and what they need. I think sometimes, as an elected official, um, you kind of forget that you're elected to serve the people and not the other way around.
Mm.
You can't be self-serving. I think you have to kind of humble yourself and understand that the reason people vote you in is for them to have a voice and for you to be able to serve their needs and not your own.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, and so you've served on school board, you've served on a city council, you have those committees that you've been on. So you've been doing a lot for our community, and I do have to say, like when I see you out in public, you often see some of your former students and people that that you've worked with, and they're always very happy to see you, and so I think that's a good sign. And I do want to talk about your career in education, but before we get there, what I want to hear about some of the things you feel like you accomplished when you were serving in these other positions. So let's start with school board. When you were on the school board for Slayton ISD, what were some of the things that you felt like you accomplished and really got done?
Well, I think that in every school system, I think um, one of the major concerns of a community is with the demographics as Slayton does. I think we have about 70% Latino students, maybe 5% African American, and then the rest is Anglo. Um, my biggest concern that there be equity in the school system, that the programs that we provide in the school system is equitable and that everybody gets a fair shake in getting and being provided those services. Um, so I remember um, when I first came on board and um, looking at the gifted and talented program, for example. I'll be very specific. Um, we had a large population of Latino students who were not represented in that program at all. I mean, like 0%. Um, and so we created a system of checks and balances, if you will, so that students that applied to be in that program um, and were not selected had an appeals process. The parents could appeal the selection because we had maybe like three people that were uh, they were the gatekeepers of the program, and their decision was final. And so I thought I found that problematic, and I thought we need to create a system that that perhaps allows parents to appeal that decision to someone else that perhaps has more expertise, maybe sees more of a global view of who gets into those programs. And so we did that. And as a result, the demographics of that program changed, allowing students of color to participate and be embraced into that program. And that's just one specific thing. I think another thing that I always looked at was the was programs that we had in the school system um, that students had to pay for. And so anytime you have a system or an organization or an extracurricular activity that students have to pay for, um, and it's part of a public school system, and it becomes almost a poll tax, almost like, hey, in order to participate in this, you have to pay X number of dollars. Well, I don't believe that a school system should create those kind of systems, create those kind of organizations. And so I push for those to be removed and to make it more equitable for kids that or less fortunate as far as you're looking at a school that's a Title I school that we have probably 80% free and reduced lunch. You're asking them to pay $1,700 to be a cheerleader. That's a little outrageous to me. And what it does, it prevents some kids from engaging in that and participating or even trying out for it. And so those are things that I removed. I removed those kind of barriers from children so that they can participate in anything they wanted to in the public school. Um, and those are some academic things. These are some extracurricular things, and I just felt that as a board member, as a city councilman, I think it's important that we hold ourselves accountable to the community and the decisions that we make that are made um, through research, not because of our personal agendas. I didn't go serve on the board because of my three children, because they were fine.
Yeah.
My three children were well taken care of, but that's not why I ran to be on the board. I ran for the children that didn't have a voice. I ran for the children that no one was going to, take a stand or advocate for them. And so that's always been my calling. That's always been the reason that I've run for offices is because um, growing up, I didn't have a voice. I didn't have a person advocating for me, and I think that was missing. I think as a city commissioner, you get to listen to those people that sometimes in the Slayton community, in the area that I live in, um, it's a small community, and so I think that we need a voice there that number one is well versed, that has experience working with others. I think that being well versed and having a personal agenda is different than being well versed and then working for the good of the entire community and in the entire commissioner's court and and working hand in hand with the judge and seeing what the needs are and creating needs assessments of the things that are needed as opposed to things that are wanted. And I think to be able to understand those dynamics, I think will help the commissioner from this precinct.
Yeah. No, and I think those are really really solid examples that you pointed to that people can really connect with. Why do you think? I mean, to me, it seems obvious that like if you want a majority of people to elect you into office, that you should make decisions, that benefit the majority of those people that elected you. Why do you think, and this can be as broad or, even if you want it to be a little more narrow, whether you want to talk about, Slayton specifically or just elected leaders in general, but why do you think that is not the standard way of making decisions? Why do so many people get elected and then just make decisions, for themselves, basically?
I think, and I'll be quite frank, I think people run for office because they have, number one, they have personal agendas, and maybe they have a cadre of people that as long as they do what this cadre of people or this support system tells them to do, then they're fine, and then they can do whatever else they want. Um, but I don't know, somewhere I think within the fabric of America, we've lost the sense of we're servant leaders. We're not there to serve our own agendas and to serve our own egos. Uh, and somewhere, and I see it across America. I see it across the state elected officials that somewhere we have forgotten that we represent the people. I mean, I'll give you a specific example. I lived in Uvalde for 6 years, and I worked for the school system there, and uh, and so have been kind of being in contact with friends and family and of those individuals, and for tragedies like that, not to receive a response or a reaction from legislators that is appropriate, that is going to be for the benefit of children, for the benefit of a community, for the benefit of America, really. Um, it just dumbfounds me because I'm thinking it's not about you, and it's not about you being elected again. It's about what's best for America, what's best for people. Uh, I would rather not get voted into an office if I'm going to have to um, respond and and be a puppet for a specific support group, saying, "Look, if you're going to be elected, this is the things that we want you to do." I'd rather not be elected because you're not the people that voted for me, and there's a large people that voted for me. Then that's who I need to listen to. People always ask this, Ken, and they ask me, what do you plan on doing if you win this election? I said, you're asking the wrong question. I said, the question that should be asked is, what do you want me to do? Because you're the ones that's putting me in that seat. And so basically, what I'll be is your voice. And what are our needs? Um, and what are the most pressing needs? And those are and that's where we need to put our money. If you want to look for any organization and what's important in any organization, follow the money, Canon. Um, where the money is spent is what's important for an organization. Uh, and I think that school education is my platform in every election that I've ever run because I think that's the foundation of this fabric of this country. Um, and so if we neglect that, I think we'll lose. Uh, the gravity of education right now is we're losing teachers. There's so many things that are happening right now, and if we don't pay attention and we don't start thinking about what's important, I think there's a lot of people that are just the country's going to fail. Um, but I mean, to answer your question, I think um, it's about doing what people want you to do. It's about doing research. It's about um, finding out, what are the most pressing issues, and not doing what a small group of people with a lot of resources want you to do. And so I think right now the culture of politics is doing what a small group of people with a lot of money um, want them to do.
And I do, you talked about following the money, and I do want to talk about that here in a little bit. But before I do that, I want to ask about city council and what. So being on city council in Plainview, and my grandparents are from there, and I know you were well liked up there, and heard a couple of people say they were sad, they were disappointed when you moved back to Slayton. And so, which, I mean, one thing I think you should be, congratulated on the fact that you actually resigned from the city council when you moved, because not all of our political leaders do that. It's hard to do, I think, on city council, but I definitely there are some state reps throughout the state that absolutely do not live in their districts. So That's nice of you to actually step down when you moved. But what when you were on city council, what were some of your big accomplishments? What did you do up there that you're proud of?
Well, we had a lot of business development. We had, and when I was there, we had a lot of infrastructure, um, and, um and so living in Slayton, Plainview is like Slayton on steroids, um, and so and that was my first experience on the city council. My whole my whole professional career had been in schools, sitting school boards, and so that was my first stint on the city council, and it wasn't overwhelming, but it was kind of eye opening
Mhm.
to be able to understand, the wide net that is cast in the wide responsibility of being on the city council, and being able to kind of uh, my expertise was education. Actually, the mayor was a former educator as well, and so I just remember on one occasion. I'll give you a specific example. Is when you know when you're dealing with people's money and people's children. Those are two things that are quite important, right? On the city council, you're dealing with people's money and their livelihood. Um, I just remember being there and um, passing a budget. That was kind of one of the first times that we had hearings, and I was a part of that process, and how that process worked. And um, and, and then what I did learn, probably, and I'm going to just say probably more than anything else, was a learning experience for me, was that um, I learned how to create strategic plans, how how um, how you don't do things haphazardly, and how you have X number of funds that, okay, well, we have $20 million. Well, then we can just kind of spend them on this and that. But what I learned in Plainview, and we have a great city councilman, and Mr. Snyder there,
Mhm.
um, was about creating a 5-year plan, and then prioritizing things year by year. The high need being taken care of year one, and second highest need year two, and so on and so forth. Um, that's probably the one thing that I learned, that I was the process that I was a part of creating in a needs assessment, and then creating a 5-year plan, and then holding holding the elected officials, which was us, accountable for doing what we said we were going to do, and allowing the our constituents to see what the plan is, to see what monies were going to be spent in the plan, and when it was going to be spent, and to engage in conversation and public discourse with the community, so they would know and be aware of how the money was going to spend, because we got a huge grant, and so everyone in the community knew and was on board on how the money was going to be spent year by year. Uh, I brought that to Slayton. That was my platform in Slayton when I ran for mayor. So, okay, look, we have to create a plan if we're going to be successful, if we're going to create a successful community, if we're going to be vibrant, if we're going to be, fiscally sound, we have to know how much money we have, and then we're going to have to create a plan of what's important. Is it going to be infrastructure? Is it going to be business development? Is it going to, and so those are the things that I learned there. I think being a part of that process was pretty eye opening for me,
Mhm.
um, and then being a part of a team, because we didn't ever allow one person to dictate what was going to happen. I think, if you know me, I'm pretty strong willed and strong minded, but I was one voice, and I understood that we were working for the betterment of one community. It didn't matter where you lived in that community. Your voice was going to be heard, and we were going to do something that was going to benefit your community as well as the other side of town.
Mhm.
Um, and so, if anything, I learned, and I can't tell you there was anything that I did personally, because it was really a team effort, and I learned to work within a team, and I learned to um, to take a look at things through a global perspective as opposed to a personal agenda, and then to make sure that we were very respectful of the funds of the community.
I mean, accountability and transparency. Those seem like radical radical ideas. So, but I think that that's a good segue into talking about how the county uses its money. And so you said follow the money. That'll show you what they find important. So once when you are elected, how what is your priority going to be in how that county money is spent, and how do you feel like it's not being prioritized correctly at the moment?
Well, I don't think we um, personally, I don't think we have a plan, and I think that we receive funding. Um, what is the 5 year plan? How are we going to spend it in specific sections of town or specific precincts? What's the rationale behind that spending? And what is the outcome? What is the projected outcome of that spending? Um, Quite frankly, I'm from a background in education, and if we have roads, county roads that need fixing because we can't get buses to kids to get them to school, that's got to be a priority, and that has to be looked at. And those are things that we need to focus on. You know, what is the growth of Lubbock and the growth of this community? How is it going to affect our county roads? How is it going to affect our farmers? How is it? And then we have to evaluate that and prepare for what's coming. I think that for so long, sometimes we've become a reactive community as opposed to a proactive community. And I think that when we take a look at funds, it says, okay, what is coming down the road? What's coming in 5 years? We know that Luke's coming close to Slayton. We know that. Um, what are we doing to prepare for that? And what kind of infrastructure we're going to set up to get that, to be ready for something of that magnitude? And because we know that's going to create growth, and that's going to affect every county in this precinct, or every county in the commissioner's court. And what are we doing as a group to be proactive about preparing for that kind of growth? And that's going to affect everyone. Um, and so I think that I think we have to sit down, and I think we have to research um, what is coming, and what are the projections that the city is putting out. What are the projections of the commissioner's court, and what is going to be beneficial to everyone, and not single out one community because they have more resources than others. Because I think I can only speak for precinct two, but I have to work within the whole system to say, hey, what's going to be best for everyone, and I think move forward from there. I'm not gun shy about espousing my ideas, or giving feedback, or providing concerns. I'm not gun shy about doing that in any platform, especially in the commissioner's court where there's only 4 or 5 members. Um, and so I think that's important, and then it's important that that each individual learns that you have to work like a team. That everyone has to understand that we work. You know, um, that you work together, and you work, and you support each other in the within that framework. Um, I think when you have people that work against it, or they have personal agendas, or they have a specific political agenda, or specific background that this allows for us to work as a team, I think that's almost counterproductive.
Mhm. So one thing that you kind of touched on a little bit, and that I have heard a lot is when I've been working in other districts that go beyond Lubbock. So whether that's Congressional District 19, State House District 83, any of the the county commissioners, because they all go outside of Lubbock. Um, smaller communities tend to resent Lubbock because Lubbock doesn't care much about the other communities. And one of the interesting things when I was running Tom Watson's campaign was that people in Abilene were really excited that somebody from Abilene was running for Congress, and nobody in Lubbock really cared. Like, people were like, that's fine, whether he's from Lubbock, whether he's from Abilene, and because we don't have to think about the other communities. So as you were talking about that, I was wondering, like, with Lubbock growing south and getting closer, to Slayton, is that causing any issues? And as county commissioner, how do you think that you can maybe get Lubbock to start working more with the surrounding communities rather than just focusing on ourselves?
No, I understand that. I think that I'll mention one person in particular, Gilbert Flores, for example,
Mm-hmm.
who has been on the commissioner's court for quite some time. Gilbert was my Cub Scout leader, uh,
Okay.
and so I think what's important is that you have a relationship with the other commissioners, that they respect who you are, and that they respect your ideas, and that they respect that you're bringing concerns and from from the precinct that you come from, and that I mean, it's important that they understand that the commissioners courts understand that what you bring to the table is backed by research, and is backed by things that are going to be for the benefit of the uh, entire uh, community, and not just one. Whether it be in Slayton or Idalou or Lake Rantham Canyon, or you know it's for the benefit of everyone. Everyone's going to benefit. It's just whether where you're going to spend the monies. There, we know that if you're going to spend the money somewhere, that you can rationalize, and you can have uh, uh, you know some background information of why the money was spent in the area that it was, and that every county commissioner can explain it, and not just say, "Oh well, that was John over in precinct 2, and he decided to spend that money over there. We really don't know why." No, it can't be that way. It has to be a collective effort where that everyone comes together and says, "Okay, John, I think that you have a great idea. We can get behind that," because I think. The final outcome is going to be a benefit to the entire commission, and not just your precinct. I think we always have to work globally, and not have a specific agenda that that's just going to benefit one person, um, or one precinct. And I think that working as a collective group and working within the other commissioners, and I think that relationship is going to be huge.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think just having that mindset is like that. It's kind of a breath of fresh air, because I just don't know that we have a lot of candidates in our area who think as collectively as that, and want to work together. And yeah, I think that's absolutely what we need. So I have a couple more questions for you. These are more general that I like to ask our guests. The first one I usually do at the beginning, and decide to move it to the back. But people like to complain about West Texas, and we like to whether we live here and complain about it, or people that live in other parts of the state. Most of what you hear about West Texas is not positive. So what I like to ask, one of the things I like to ask my guests is, what do you like about West Texas? What is one of your favorite things about living out here in this area?
Well, I've been here since I was born. Actually, one of the few people can say I was born and raised in Slayton.
Okay.
My Probably the majority of my professional career was in Lubbock. I was at Lubbock Estacado, and I was at McKenzie Junior High, and I worked in the school system. My first principal's job was at St. John Newman Catholic School, Um, I just think that Lubbock it's a small town values on steroids. It's you can't go anywhere in Lubbock without somebody recognizing you, it doesn't happen in large cities, but it happens in Lubbock because Lubbock is not a very big city. It's just and then when you spend so many years in Lubbock, you tend to run into somebody everywhere you go. It doesn't matter where. And living in Slayton, I've never I lived in Lubbock when I was going to tech, and then I opted to move home. And I didn't opt to move home, but they kind of required me when I started coaching here, and so we just decided to stay and just be in my hometown. Um, I think that that small town feel uh, is always made me stay. I moved out to Uvalde for 6 years, and then I was in Plainview for about another 5 or 6 years. That was the only two times that I kind of went away from Lubbock. Um, but I gravitated back, and and I think it's just kind of the small town feel. I'm a people person, so I don't mind running into people and chatting with them about whatever anywhere I go. Um, Very giving community. When I was working as a school administrator, I would always reach out to the businesses in this community, and they would always uh, quick to open their wallets and help our schools. Um, and so I can't say enough for the business community. I'm the vice chair for the Latino Chamber that just started, and again, the community has been gracious to embrace us and to embrace a new vision. Uh, and but I think that just the small town values and um, just the camaraderie that you feel in a small town like Slayton, you feel it in Lubbock, and um, I think you have you have a almost a microcosm of a large city, but you just get bits and pieces of it here. You have you have the wealthy and you have those that are on the other extreme, but they're not magnified to the point where you have people that are like in Austin or living under bridges or anything like that. Although we do have that populace of people. Um, and so I think that just kind of that small town value, you just kind of get to know everybody. You have the luxury of having a large university, and you get that experience. You also have an experience of small colleges, and uh, so you just kind of get a cross section of things here without being in the big city. I think you get a taste of everything, and there's several opportunities. You get to have several opportunities that maybe you wouldn't be able to have in a large city. And um, you go to a community like Lubbock, and you've been around for as many years as I have. You recognize most people because they've been around for a very long time,
Yeah.
and and but that's kind of what I enjoy. It's it's just kind of the people and the fabric of these communities.
Yeah. So I have a specific Slayton question. Since you're from Slayton, you keep going back. I think you'll be a good person to answer this. So because I have some cousins who live in Slayton, and if we make the mistake of saying that they're from Lubbock, they correct us very quickly, and they're like, no, we don't live in Lubbock. We live in Slayton. I don't see people do that who live in some of the other small towns like Wolfworth or Shallowater or New Deal. I don't see a lot of people like I've never heard anyone be like I'm not from Lubbock, I'm from New Deal. But Slayton has that hometown pride. Why do you think that is? What why?
Well, when I was in high school, you know, the girls' basketball team kind of put us on the map. They won like 5 or 6 state championships in a row, and so if you knew Slayton, you knew that we had a tremendous basketball program, and you knew that we have this, renowned bakery, and and so. And so I don't know. I just think that um, it's funny you should say that because I think there's a lot of truth to that. I haven't experienced it myself. When I go, you know, to the places where I'll go work across the country, they'll ask me where I'm from, and I'll tell them I'm from Lubbock, and they don't even know where Lubbock is.
Right, right.
So, um, but no, I think there's a tremendous pride in saying that you're from Slayton. I think that it's probably stems back to the basketball days when our
Mhm.
girls were a powerhouse, and we used to actually win football games, and most people that grow up here, they don't leave.
Yeah,
They may go off and then but they come back. I think it's just a very prideful community. It's a community where it's just kind of unlike any other. Demographics have changed dramatically since when I was in public schools. Um, and so I don't know. I just I don't know what that answer would be. But you're right. A lot of people are very prideful and will kind of set you straight and saying where you're from.
yeah,
Uh, I don't know that I've ever personally done that myself because with places that I go, if I would say Slayton, they'd be like, "What?"
right.
But realistically, they don't even know where Lubbock is, and that's kind of crazy. I think maybe Patrick Mahomes might have changed that a little bit. Maybe I don't know. Uh,
Yeah, yeah. I hopefully, maybe. Yeah, well, and I've always thought that that was strange that Lubbock, gets that reputation, and like I know that I've heard on like ESPN, the announcers will be like, I don't know, and they might have been talking about Mahomes when I heard this, but they're like, I don't know how they convinced them to go out in Lubbock, go out, and live in Lubbock. But as someone who lived in Stillwater, Oklahoma, going to Oklahoma State, like that it was a much harder transition than coming to Lubbock. Like that, Lubbock gets a bad rap for that. But so my final question for you is what gives you hope? And again, this can be as narrow or big as you want it to be, but what gives you hope?
I, it's I have grandkids. I have two grandkids, and I see the challenges that they face, and I see the obstacles that they face, and then I see the potential that they have. Um, and while people, across the country, they'll say, kids are different, and uh, I worry about our youth, and um, so I'm kind of on the opposite end of that. I see youth today, and I see how global they are, and I see the potential that they have, and I see the, the the challenges that they have to face, and no one else in the world has had to face except our youth. Social media has been something that you and I didn't have to face growing up,
Mm,
and people forget that. They forget that kids today are dealing with issues that we never had to deal with. Uh, they're doing things that we never would have dreamed of doing at that age. And they're much more sophisticated than we are. Um, and so, at the age of 8 years old, 10 years old, my world was about a 2 block radius of my house.
mm,
And that was it. Today, kids are playing games with people from China and Japan and all over the world, and they're communicating with them and, and building relationships online if that's even a possibility. But I think what gives me hope is youth. Uh, while people may not think that kind of think that, oh, our kids are spoiled and our kids are not hardworking, they don't know how to do this. It's because times are changing, and people in my generation, we 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 kind of we want to pump the brakes and say, hey, can can this change slow down? And honestly, it's not going to slow down. We have to either get on that bandwagon, or we're going to be left behind.
Yeah.
Here I am sitting with you on this electronic call, and the first time this happened to me was in 2015 when I'm interviewing for a job I remember the platform that we used then, but I was freaking out because I'm like, how am I gonna how am I gonna connect with the people that are on the screen as opposed to being in person with them, you know? And
Yeah.
and I work from home, and so all the people I work for, I only saw them electronically, and so now this is secondhand to me. Now this is common, and this is now I work from home now, and so what gives me hope, man, is youth, and we have to continue to nurture them, and we need to continue to build, um, build them up, and make them understand, and maybe sprinkle them with a little of the past, um, so they don't become, academic barbarians. Make sure that their heart is growing as much as their
Yeah.
minds. Uh,
Mhm.
but one of my bosses one time told me this. He said, "Hey, man, not everybody can ride a racehorse. Sometimes we have some kids that are racehorses, man, and we got to let them run instead of pulling back on the reins. And we have a lot of kids that are racehorses, and there's no telling what the potential is going to be for what the kids are capable of. The capacity that they have is much more global. I think they're going to do some great things for us. Uh, we just got to let them run, support them, and love them, and make sure that they feel loved, because I think that's an ingredient sometimes that we miss. Um, and I think that, but I see youth, and that gives me hope. While everybody probably would disagree with me, I go. I'm in the classrooms. I'm in the schools. I see
Mhm.
what kids can do, and I see what's missing in their lives, and I think that they say, well, social media and technology has made them not. I said, I get that, but these kids are human beings, and these kids have some potential that is unlike anybody else's in the world in the past.
Mhm.
Um, and so that's what gives me hope, man. And as a former educator, I think that the kids get, you know, just a small handful of kids give the other 95% of that rap, uh,
Mhm. Mhm.
because 95% of them are doing some amazing things,
Yeah.
and those are the things that we need to be focused on, and not the 5%.
Yeah.
So that's what gives me hope, man. Youth.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a great answer. Yeah, that's a great answer. Well, John, I really appreciate you being on and talking to me, and I'm sure I will have you back before the election is over.
Appreciate you. Thank you so
All
much.
right. And we will leave it there. One of the things that really stood out to me at the end while John was talking is when he talked about how, as communities, whether we're in education, or just talking about living as neighbors, one of the things he said was we need to make sure that kids feel loved. And he mentions that in our education system we don't do that the best way we should. And I thought that was so powerful, because I don't know that there are many candidates. I don't know that there are many elected officials. I don't know that there's many school board members who put that as a priority, who want to make sure that kids feel loved. And I think as a community that should be our priority. And we need to accept the fact that not every child feels that at home, and it is one of our jobs to try to help them feel that somewhere, to feel love and accepted. And if we do that, we could solve a lot of other problems that we have in our community and in our country. That love is important, and I think he's right. I think we have lost that. I think that with the way we run our public school systems, um, that I think maybe not most people, I think a lot of people would roll their eyes at that sentiment. I know a lot of teachers would not, but I think maybe if they had to come up with a plan of like how are you going to make sure your students feel loved, they might say, well, that's a different story. Like, yes, they should feel loved. How am I going to do it with all the testing, with everything else that I'm doing? But I think as a community, we could really start to work on that. And I think as a county commissioner, John Gatica could do a lot of really good work for our community. So thanks for watching, and I will see you next week.